Our next storyteller is Dianna Yao. She actually just came back from Kenya last night. Did you fly in from Kenya last night for this story jam? Holy. Anyway, her story, one night while she was studying the mating habits of rats, she had an existential crisis. Please welcome Dianna and her story, Mice, what was it again? Mice in Heat. This is her first time, so give her a really warm welcome.
I didn't know it was going to be so bright. Good, I guess I can't see anyone from this angle. Anyways, so in high school, they tell you your best years are in college, those first 4 years, where you're going to meet the people that will be attending your weddings, you'll be intellectually stimulated, and basically you're going to be best friends with your professors. And I came into college thinking that, and instead what I saw was a bunch of premature high school kids, basically Hunger Games for the best grades. And at that time, I was asking myself, okay, this is freshman year, maybe it'll get better. The seniors let me in on a secret that the best years is actually your senior year, your fourth year in college. And I'm like, okay. La-di-da-da-da. 3 years pass, I'm in my senior year, and I'm like, this is the year where I can put all the last 3 years behind me where I was learning economic models that were not generalizable or based on assumptions that were obviously wrong, but they were teaching it anyways because you have to make some assumptions to come up with some models. And I was like, okay, this is great. So I chose a class, Psych Lab. Psychology lab was supposed to give you some hands-on experience on how to conduct an experiment. And I was really excited to basically be able to diagnose psychological diseases and potentially act like a psychiatrist for at least 3 months. I was like, okay, I'm going into this. So first class, I enter Miss Moy's classroom, and there were 10 tables laid out. And on the tables, there were these plastic cages. And in those plastic cages, there was something scurrying around, and I couldn't really see. I got closer, and then by that time, I'm 1 feet in, and there's these white mice with demonic eyes. And I jump back really quickly because I'm scared of cockroaches, mice, anything that's moving around. And I'm asking myself, what the hell is this? Are we going to diagnose mice psychological diseases? And then Miss Moy is telling us, okay, first assignment, basically you're going to bring in the male mice, which is in the plastic cages. And then now we're going to introduce the female mice in metal containers. And I'm like, okay, and then what are we going to do? And they say, we're going to bring in the female mice in the plastic containers and the female mice in the metal containers and introduce it into the plastic enclosures. I was like, okay, and then what are they going to do in there? And she's like, okay, assignment number 1, you basically have to tally the number of times the male and the female mice are mating. I was like, okay, this is really useful to find my next job out of college. And I'm saying to myself, okay, so this is what the seniors warned me of, that this was going to be an exciting year. Maybe it was going to be fun, but not necessarily useful. And hence, I go into a room with my partner, into a dark room, since mice don't like to be in bright places. And we sit down, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I haven't seen this many times, so let me try my best to tally this correctly. And we sit down, and we're 30 seconds in, they introduce the female mice into the plastic enclosure. And you see these 2 mice doing a dance around in a circle. And 30 seconds in, the male mice lurches at the female mice. And I'm like, okay, that counts as 1, right? And my partner looks at me, probably saying, you doofus. That didn't count. There wasn't enough time for the male mice to penetrate the female mice. I was like, okay, so maybe I don't have the hang of this. And then 5 minutes pass, and on my paper I have about 8 tallies scribbled down, and I look over to my partner, and he has 5. I'm like, okay, I'm obviously doing this wrong, but saying to myself, at the same time thinking to myself, wow, my grade is going to be based on tallying the number of times a male and a female mice is going to be mating. And at the same time of being incredulous, I was like, oh, but my GPA is dependent on this, and if I don't graduate, I don't get a job, and if I don't get a job, like, all hell is gonna break loose, and all of my life I built it up for this exact moment to get the perfect grade in this class. And I'm like, okay, so he has scribbled down 5, I erased my 8, I'm like, okay, 5. And that was sort of the end of the assignment for that day. I go back home, and I'm still in the spell thinking to myself, okay, grade dependent on number of times male and female rat is mating. And then after, I think by 8 o'clock after I've had dinner, sort of the spell was broken, and I sort of broke down and asked myself, wow, I'm in college doing this assignment that is totally useless. It's not gonna help me change the world in any way. And at that time, I was asking myself, what was the point of these last 4 years if not to prepare me for the real world, if not to prepare me to make the world a better place? And I'm sitting there sort of trying my best to write the assignment, doing some correlation between the number of times they were mating and the pheromones between the male and the female mice. And then I'm just fed up, so I call my friend Tulio, who's from Venezuela, and I'm telling him about, oh, what a interesting but also incredulous day that I've had. And I'm telling him the story of what happened, and at the end, he stops me. He's like, I know you're having a crisis, and you go to this college, but I'm having my own crisis here in my country. Basically, people are waiting 2 hours online to get the most basic things like flour. Right now, outside of my window, I'm hearing gunshots, and I sit there kind of silent because I realize I'm complaining to someone who's basically trying to survive, and in a context where the country is just trying to survive. And I'm in college, basically getting an education and telling myself, okay, there is the chance to be able to change the world, but right now I have the opportunity to be able to take on something that is a stepping stone to get there. So, thank you.